Unlike others, Malarkey wasn't afraid to confront Anna, and she did. In front of an eyewitness in the newsroom, Malarkey pulled Anna aside and towered over her and read her the riot act. "You don't have the right to behave this way to these people," she said firmly. "They don't work for you like Georgia does. You can treat her like a dog, but not the people who work for me. Because if you do it to the people who work for me, I'll assume you did it to me, and I'll get ugly. Don't go there. I fight for keeps." Anna was stunned and said nothing. Aware that Malarkey could make life difficult for her, she knew when to back off. Praise the Lord. There is hope. There's hope. I'm so happy right now. You don't even know. This is what I've been waiting for these many years. This is exactly what we wanted. Has it not been what we wanted? Somebody to finally stand up to her, and what happened? She backed down. Hello, how are you? Welcome to my channel. My name is Cheer Denise. We're going to keep going in our book, Front Row, The Biography of Anna Wintour by Jerry Oppenheimer. Now, yesterday we were reading chapter 20, but we didn't finish. I had to rush off and make breakfast for the fam. Okay, but we only have a couple of pages left of that story, and where we left off yesterday was Anna had begun working for this magazine, Savvy. Okay, startup magazine. They're paying her peanuts, and I mean it. They were giving her $3,000 a month to pay herself, all her photographers, all her models, and to obtain clothes. And find locations, shoots, everything. For $3,000 a month in 1980. That's not going to get you anywhere. So a lot of what she did was based off of her social connections, her professional connections. She had lots of friends who were willing to do her favors because really the exposure to a New York market was a benefit to them. Sort of how they could build their portfolio. So lots of the things were being done sort of for free. Okay, well, she's scratching their back. They'll scratch hers. She's the person to do this job. If this magazine can't afford a fashion editor, the best person they could have gotten was Anna Wintour because she's addicted to the job. She loves fashion. She has tons of friends and she has her own personal income. They're not going to find this setup again. It doesn't exist out there. I mean, she's like the only girl in the entire world who they could have gotten to do this job. And she's doing really, really good work. However, her attitude stinks. So the same thing that happens to her every single time she gets a job. She can do the work. And there's no question that she has ties and connections that nobody else has. But her attitude is so terrible. And she's so difficult to work with. And she's so rebellious against any authority in the office that they have to let her go, even though she's doing fabulous work and has fabulous connections and can do it basically for free. Can you imagine how difficult somebody has to be for you to just sort of be like, yes, all three of these things are correct. You're a fantastic worker. You can do it for free. And you have all the connections, but I'm not willing to put up with your attitude. I mean, that attitude stank. Okay. So we had been teased at the beginning of the chapter that her comeuppance was coming. And here we are for that. Then, after we get done with that chapter, we're going to be reading chapters 21 and 22. And both of those have to do with her trying to claw her way up in the world. 21 is entitled New York by Storm. That would be New York Magazine that she went to, I believe, right before Vogue. And then A Territorial Grab is chapter 22. So let's dive right in and pick up on the story of the explosions about to happen at Savvy. The book goes on to say that from the time she started at Savvy, Anna had a fashion feature virtually every month in the magazine. Among them was a shoot on location in Paris. Anna picked up the travel tab herself, since she was taking the $8,000 round-trip Concorde back and forth for weekend jaunts anyway. A piece from the City of Lights with her byline on it would make her look important to editors at other magazines. $8,000 round trip. Oh my gosh. One of the longest features, 11 pages, was a dramatic spread featuring her beautiful friend Tina Chow, co-owner of the trendy Mr. Chow's restaurant in London, Los Angeles, and New York. Courtesy of her one-time London beau, John Pringle, who had been head of tourism in Jamaica, she was able to wangle an American Airlines round-trip flight and a stay at the luxurious Round Hill Resort on the island, where she once again, against all odds, did a photo shoot with Guy Lebaum, his transvestite assistant. It was a disaster, remembers Dan Taylor, who went along. Guy lost some of his equipment, Savvy wouldn't pay, and Anna was furious. Well, Anna pleased editor Judith Daniels' bottom line with her low-budget, dramatic-looking fashion layouts. Many pulled off gratis because of her professional and social ties. The two strong-minded, assertive women, along with hands-on publisher Alan Bennett, began to butt heads. As in her 3 previous magazine jobs, Anna always seemed to reach a point where she became a problem for management. This time it had to do with the fact that the fashions she was choosing for her layouts were way too sexy for Savvy's executive working woman readership, and some of the shots Anna selected were too artsy, with, in some instances, the models' heads cut off. Judy was saying, "We not only have to see the clothes, we have to see the models' faces." But Anna didn't think that was very exciting, notes art director Carol Carson. Anna always wanted to put a spin on it. She wanted a theme. In one layout, she wanted a Twilight look. But Judith and Alan Bennett, who was our leader, wanted something a little more pedestrian for what they thought was our readers' demographic. I just want to say this real quick. I don't think it was their readers' demographic. Because this is a group of women who are, to some extent, sort of trailblazing the idea of being like the high-powered business working woman. So they might wear, I suppose, their drab little suits and carry around their giant IBM quote-unquote laptop computers and their gigantic cell phones. But I think they believe that they're on the cutting edge of life. So I think that they would be titillated by fashion that wasn't boring. Maybe all they do want is their pinstripe pantsuit with the giant shoulder pads. But I also think that if they can think big enough that they would break from a mold that had been a traditional woman's working role, would they not then also enjoy interesting fashion, unless they thought that fashion was demeaning because all it did was sort of fetishize the female? I don't know. It's their magazine. They probably were right. Maybe she probably was out to lunch with some of the things she was doing. That's just a thought. Anyway, for a cover, Anna once proposed a glamour shot of a model wearing a magenta hat that obscured part of her face, which Anna thought was an interesting offbeat look. But Bennett and Daniels nixed it. Anna was told the issue wouldn't sell on newsstands because you couldn't see the model's face, says Carson. There was a whole ideology in place that came from the publisher that said women will look at the cover and want to be that woman. I thought we were supposed to be about self-confidence, with readers saying, "I don't want to be her." Moreover, Anna had begun requesting more space in the magazine for her fashion layouts, mainly to get the attention of editors at other magazines, in hopes of getting a job offer. Well, this magazine is not her personal place to advertise herself. I know that's ultimately how she's doing it, but could she blame her boss for not loving that idea? For a time, Georgia Gunn shared the byline, but her name was eventually dropped, and Anna's name shone alone. She drove Judy Daniels and all those people nuts because she was so exacting and demanding, asserts Dan Taylor. Anna wanted more pages and kept building up the pages so she'd get more visibility and recognition. And Judy kept trying to cut her pages down. Anna wanted bigger pictures and less copy. Taylor enjoyed sitting back and watching them go at it. 2 headstrong women going up against each other, he recalls. Anna came off like an authority, presented herself as an authority, and disregarded everybody else who tried to get in her way. She followed the old adage that if you pretend you're in control, you are in control. Anna and Judy were totally different kinds of women. One was British society world and the other was New York society world, and that's pretty clashy to begin with. It all became too much for Judith Daniels, according to her second-in-command, Susan Edmiston. Anna was trying to do fairly avant-garde fashion for Savvy, and Judy wanted her to do more conservative professional clothing, like the clothes that Judy wore. But Anna would say, "I want to do this, I want to do that," and she would just do what she wanted, basically. Judy didn't like it, and she was the editor, for God's sake, and she didn't have the ability to influence Anna's product, essentially. At one point, Judy attempted to fire Anna, Edmiston states. Judy came to my desk and looked so frustrated and threw up her hands and said, "But Anna refuses to be fired." Judy wasn't one to go into detail, kept things close to her chest, and I didn't ask. But I always thought that's an extraordinary thing. How does one do that? How does one refuse to be fired? I thought it revealed an extraordinary quality in Anna. It feels like a Seinfeld episode. Years later, Daniels, who left Savvy in 1984 to go to Time Inc., and later became a magazine consultant, diplomatically maintains that she never tried to fire Anna. "I never said that. That's not ringing any bells at all. Everybody gets annoyed at somebody at some point. I'm sure there are times when everybody thinks of firing someone. I certainly appreciated her. I certainly never had anybody else lined up as fashion editor. I never looked for anybody." The former Esquire New York Magazine editor, Byron Doble, a friend of Daniels, says he heard 2 diametrically opposed stories at the time about Anna's deteriorating relationship with Daniels. One came from John Bradshaw, who helped Anna get the job at Savvy, and on whose shoulder Anna always cried. He told me very indignantly that Judy was dropping Anna because Anna was too high couture for Judy's magazine. He said Judy didn't appreciate how wonderful Anna was, recalls Doble. But Judy, on the other hand, speaks with great praise of Anna. My feeling is that Judy never realized Anna was going to become this grand dame of the fashion industry. Whatever happened between the two, Anna, now 31, quietly began seriously looking for another job in early 1981, after having been at Savvy for just 9 months. One of her first stops was Andy Warhol's Interview magazine, which turned into an embarrassing disaster. For 3 months, Anna had been working in secret, while still receiving her monthly stipend from Savvy, on an idea for a fashion insert that she thought would be perfect for the edgy downtown monthly. In mid-March 1981, Anna confidently and proudly showed her layout to Bob Colacello, Warhol's trusted lieutenant and bosom buddy at the magazine, expecting him to be excited and welcome her with open arms into the underground fold. Her hopes were that she'd be hired on the spot. Just the opposite happened, and it knocked Anna for a loop, at least the way Warhol told it. Colacello just looked at it for 1 second and said it was trash, and she started crying, Warhol maintained. She's a tough cookie, and I could never even imagine her crying, but I guess it was her femininity coming out. In a way, the rejection was a stroke of luck, because the next magazine she visited seeking work, with the same portfolio in hand, viewed her like a messiah. Anna would finally get the visibility that would catch the attention of Vogue. Let's find out how. This next magazine she runs to is New York, okay? So she's climbing up the ladder. It's a far cry from Savvy. It is really quite extraordinary that Judith Daniels may have ever thought she would have had a chance to keep Anna around. I mean, even if they did butt heads, and even though she says that she didn't fire Anna, I think she did. I think she was angry, very angry at the time, and then after seeing Anna climb the ranks, she doesn't want to make it seem as though she didn't see talent when talent was in her face. Because even she said at the beginning of that chapter that when her name came up, when Anna's name came up as a possible fashion editor choice, she didn't at the time have the wherewithal to be like, yes, absolutely, I hadn't thought of Anna, but I know her personally, and that would be a great choice. She didn't know to say that. So do you think now she, and she seems a little embarrassed that she didn't jump at the chance? Are we going to assume that now she wants to admit that she couldn't work with this person, potentially flew into a rage and, try to get her fired, but the girl wouldn't go? I mean, what part of that story makes her look good? She didn't see talent where talent was. And Anna was talented. Maybe not at the writing part of it, but she had vision. And she didn't have control of her work environment. She was the boss, but couldn't get people fired. I mean, what part of that story would you want to tell? I tend to believe that Judith has a poor memory when it comes to her experience with Anna. And, I guess a person could say, well, what do I know? And that's true. What do I know? But it just seems like if everybody remembers one thing, but somehow you don't, and that thing kind of made you look lame, I think we can believe everybody else. All right, chapter 21, New York by Storm. All of the doors were open for Anna's first 4 jobs. From Harper's and Queen to Savvy, by the men in her life. The role she would always play as the ultimate man's woman paid off well and would continue to earn her big dividends. Her position as fashion editor at Trending New York magazine, which she won in the spring of 1981, was no exception. Once again, another guy pal in her circle laid the groundwork for her to get the job that would give her the most credibility and visibility since she entered the fashion world a decade earlier, a position that would catapult her to Vogue through her own creativity, ambition, and shrewd manipulation. A colleague at New York Magazine maintains that Anna came to New York with one goal, and that was to get the attention of Condé Nast's owner, Cy Newhouse, and Vogue editorial director, Alex Lieberman. She was auditioning for them. We talked about it. She knew what she was doing. She's very smart and calculating, and she knew how to play everyone, especially Ed Cosner, the editor of New York, in order to get to Vogue. The goal was Vogue, always Vogue. And Anna told me that. Anna's buddy Anthony Hayden Guest, who contributed a number of stories about the modeling business to New York, got the gold ring this time round for helping her get the fashion editor's position at the slick Big Apple Weekly. The way Anna told it to a British journalist writing a 1998 profile of her, she got her in through a fortunate phone call from Hayden Guest, who rang her up one day to ask if I was busy for lunch, and out of that came the job offer. She insists that no master plan on her part was involved. In that profile, as well as others, she never mentioned her stints at Viva and Savvy or her jet-setting hiatus with Michelle Esteban before New York hired her. It's as if Anna had taken half of her resume and dropped it into a shredder and then pieced together the parts that best served her image. She also revealed to the profile writer Nigel Farndale of London's Daily Telegraph that she was desperately seeking a new job when Hayden Guest called. Nor did she disclose that she had made Hayden Guest very aware of her intense desire to work in New York, where he had access to the top brass and could drop her name. Anna made her hiring at New York sound serendipitous. In any event, Hayden Guest, whom she'd known since her nightclubbing days in London, had put in good words for her and gotten her an appointment with the magazine's managing editor, Laurie Jones. As it turned out, much of the same material that Bob Colacello at Interview thought was trash not long before, Jones found exciting and compelling. Anna and Jones also took an immediate liking to each other, even though in some ways they were different types. A native of the small Texas town of Kerrville, a one-time cheerleader, superb athlete, former Miss Kerr County, and member of an exclusive WASP college sorority, Jones was stylish and immaculate, and would marry into a blue-blooded family. She was a perfect fit for the sophisticated ambiance of New York, and a match for someone like Anna, who knew, a colleague notes, that she was dealing with someone with credentials, a pedigree, money, and style. Jones also was hard-working, earnest, and highly respected by the troops at New York. Star writers such as Pete Hamill, Nicholas Pileggi, Lally Weymouth, and John Simon, and was number 2 on the masthead under Costner, a veteran journalist. Their boss at the time was a conservative Australian media mogul Rupert Murdoch, whose news group owned New York. Jones' vivid recollection of their first meeting is that Anna told her she was between jobs and wasn't working for Savvy. In fact, Anna was still connected to Savvy when she met with Jones, and her last feature, precisely headlined Dressing for Success, didn't run in that magazine until August 1981, some 4 months after she was hired in New York. Despite the inconsistencies in the timeline, Jones says Anna knocked her socks off with her presentation. She had brought in story ideas. It was all Polaroided, sort of a map with photos of what she'd do with different ideas. Sometimes people came in with ideas to discuss, but she had Polaroids. She had the whole storyboard worked out. I never encountered anything like that. After their meeting, the ex-cheerleader went into Costner's office and raved. "This woman is unbelievable. We'll all be working for her someday." Jones' prediction was on the mark, at least concerning herself. After Anna became editor-in-chief of Vogue, she grabbed Jones from New York and appointed her to the powerful post of managing editor, where she remained Anna's trusted lieutenant. Jones explained to Costner that she envisioned Anna as a one-woman show with an assistant, and that she would be responsible for generating fashion and style story ideas, overseeing shoots, and attending the collections. If Jones was unabashedly impressed with Anna, the married Ed Costner was enthralled, if not infatuated, from the moment he laid eyes on her, and he gave Jones the green light to hire her at a salary that was said to be in the $50,000 range, the most Anna had ever made. Ed had chicks galove. We're talking major chicks galove. Full breakdown time, says a former high-ranking New York editor, laughing at the memory. Anna would go into his office and bat her eyes and get anything she wanted. Everyone in the office knew it from day one and whispered and joked about it. As Corky Pollan, an assistant editor at the time who worked on the popular Best Bets column, notes, Ed was quite enamored of Anna. She seems to have quite an effect on men. Years later, from her high perch at Vogue, Jones remembered only the fine work Anna produced. Anna just did fabulous pieces and portfolios, so innovative, and eventually, obviously, it caught Lex Lieberman's eye at Vogue. But all of that was still to come. With Michael Stone, Anna celebrated her hiring at the expensive downtown Italian restaurant Di Silvano on Sunday, April 26, 1981, where she ran into Andy Warhol, who, quote, couldn't remember her name at first and didn't think much of her. She was just hired by New York Magazine to be their fashion editor, he said in his published diary, adding bitchily, "She wanted to work for Interview, but we didn't hire her. Maybe we should have, but I don't think she knows how to dress. She's actually a terrible dresser." Well, Andy, at least she doesn't wear terrible wigs and act like a loon and then somehow become super famous because you painted a Campbell's soup can and then got a league of people to make prints of it. I don't know if she was the hack. When Anna came aboard, New York wasn't what it had been back in the late 60s and 70s, when it was edited by its founder, Clay Felker, the father of the so-called new journalism, who gave legs to iconic writers like Tom Wolfe and Jimmy Breslin. Back then, it was a must-read, one of the first city magazines with the best reporting and writing in the country. Even by the early 80s, New York was still the place to be seen and heard in the communications capital of the world, where it covered everything from brownstone living in trendy Brooklyn Heights to the Upper East Side private schools, to dramatic city crimes, to Manhattan celebrities and power brokers. Before Anna, the most creative fashion and style editor there was the witty, sharp-eyed John Duca, who left to become a style reporter at the New York Times and later worked for Anna's HG and Vogue. He later developed AIDS and died after a surgical procedure. New York Magazine was Anna's big chance. She knew it, and she made the most of it. The first day on the job, she marked her territory and established her stature by refurbishing her alcove off of what she called the bullpen, the main newsroom, where the other editors and writers worked. When Felker, an ex-newspaperman, ran the magazine, he had moved into a relatively new midtown building, but furnished the editorial floor like a city room out of the front page, with second-hand clunky wooden desks and chairs from a defunct insurance company, which was ironic for a magazine that promoted upscale lifestyle. The ambiance, or lack thereof, didn't suit Anna one bit. She looked around at the space we'd allocated for her, recalls Jones, and she said, "I won't work at a desk like that." The next day, to the amazement of other staffers, Anna marched into the office and had the old desk removed and replaced with a sleek contemporary Formica-topped affair on 2 metal sawhorses as legs that she'd brought from Michael Stone's loft, along with a high-tech chrome-framed chair with a seat and back made of bungee cords. It sent a message to everyone around her. Her Majesty has arrived. No one had even thought to do that, to have a new desk delivered, notes Jones, still seemingly astonished more than 2 decades later. That first day, Anna's image as a diva was cemented, just as if she were a star that had placed her prince in Hollywood's Walk of Fame. And an incident involving her sleek white desk underscored to a number of her fellow staffers that she was a temperamental prima donna. Anna was given the go-ahead to hire an assistant. In her early 20s, creative, quirky, and artistic, the new hire answered Anna's phones, scheduled her appointments, ran her errands, picked up her lunch, and in general did her scut work. At the end of each day, Anna demanded that the girl clear everything off of her prized desk. Everything. And wipe it down with Windex so the Formica glistened. The next time Anna was in the office, she wanted to be able to sit at a Spartan, shiny work surface with absolutely nothing on it, which is the way her desk usually appeared to the astonishment of those whose desks were piled high with old newspapers, magazines, press releases, and cardboard coffee cups, like working journalists. One of the veteran New York staffers was Ruth Gilbert, a tough old bird. She finally retired when she turned 80, who wrote the column In and Around Town, about things to do in the city. One of her favorite places to visit was Haiti, and she frequently brought back wooden dolls, supposedly good luck charms, and gave them to special people. As a present, she left one of those tokens on Anna's desk. The next morning, Anna came in and freaked when she saw the curio, possibly thinking it was a voodoo doll that was left there by one of the many staffers whom she sensed disliked her. At the same time, she was furious that someone had, as one eyewitness recalls, sullied this pristine surface of her desk by leaving her a little gift. Anna is said to have reprimanded her innocent assistant, who soon quit, for permitting the trespass to occur. She was the first in a long line of young female assistants who came and went like butterflies in the night. The Anna Dusk incident became the talk of the office. Compulsive and obsessive was the way a number of her colleagues viewed her after it happened. When Gilbert heard about Anna's reaction, she too was spitting fire. As a colleague notes of the late and lamented editor, she was the kind of woman who, if somebody had said something wrong or she heard something unfair, would say, "F that shit." And that's what she said about Anna's hissy fit. Anna felt a lot of animosity from other staffers because of her behavior and attitude, which caused her some insecurity. At one point early on, she let her hair down a bit and plaintively asked a colleague, Nancy McKeon, "I don't really belong here, do I?" Trailing behind Anna to the new job was her trusted and loyal stylist helper, Georgia Gunn. In the years since they started working together, nothing seemed to have changed in what happened to their master-slave relationship. By the time Gunn got to New York, she still worked like an effing fiend for Anna, who abused her dreadfully, says a New York colleague. Anna's a classic bully, and does it around people with whom she can get away with it. People are just afraid of her. Look how Martha Stewart got away with treating people badly all those years. They have the same mentality, a huge amount of hubris. Anna has an incredible force of will. Jordan Shops, New York's cover editor, had a somewhat different view. He feels the two had a love-hate relationship, that there was good and bad feelings between them, and an indecipherable bond that kept them working together. But the source maintains, Georgia was a slave and she was treated as such. Anybody who worked directly for Anna was treated abominably. But if Anna had to work one-on-one with you, or she needed something from you, she behaved differently. She played nice. One confrontation occurred early on with some people in the photo and art departments, with which Anna worked closely. Those departments handled her fashion shots and were responsible for making her layouts look good, but the staff could sabotage her work if they felt that they were being treated shabbily, which is how they often felt from day one. She threw fits. She showed no respect. She acted completely inappropriately, asserts the source, who witnessed Anna's behavior. Complaints were made to photo editor Karen Malarkey, a 6-foot-tall cowgirl type who possessed major clout and had a great reputation in the photography world. She was a protege of the noted photographer Oliviero Toscani. She'd also worked at Life, Rolling Stone, and Newsweek. Unlike others, Malarkey wasn't afraid to confront Anna, and she did. In front of an eyewitness in the newsroom, Malarkey pulled Anna aside and towered over her and read her the riot act. "You don't have the right to behave this way to these people," she said firmly. "They don't work for you like Georgia does. You can treat her like a dog, but not the people who work for me. Because if you do it to the people who work for me, I'll assume you did it to me, and I'll get ugly. Don't go there. I fight for keeps." Anna was stunned and said nothing. Aware that Malarkey could make life difficult for her, she knew when to back off. Praise the Lord. There is hope. There's hope. I'm so happy right now. You don't even know. This is what I've been waiting for all these many years. This is exactly what we've wanted. Has it not been what we wanted? Somebody to finally stand up to her. And what happened? She backed down. What was it so hard for all these people to say something to Anna all this time? All these bosses who were like, "I can't seem to fire Anna. Oh, that's just Anna. Oh, Anna's scary." Thank God for this Karen Malarkey, who was unwilling to take it. Anna had checked out Karen thoroughly and realized she was not a good enemy to have, notes the source. Anna's too smart of a general, and she's a believer in keeping your enemies closer than your friends, so she wasn't about to go up against her. I think she was also intrigued by the fact that Karen wasn't afraid of her. After almost a dozen years in the business, Anna still wasn't considered a writer, so Quidda McMath, an associate editor who had the reputation as a clever writer, was assigned to pen the fashion layouts in consultation with her. She would sit down and try to tell me what points she was trying to make or what was important about the clothes, says McMath, whose Texas accent was in striking opposition to Anna's British, which drove both of them crazy. I once wrote something about hats and she kept wanting to say that they were witty, while I was trying to say it another way, using a pun or an American phrase that she wasn't familiar with. All she could say was, "But they're so witty. Can't you see that they're witty hats?" I always had the feeling that she felt I was beneath her social station because we had no personal connection, and I was a little bit intimidated by her. Anybody who's going to describe a hat as witty is not above you, okay? What kind of a description is that? Anna got fed up with McMath, and during a week when the writer was on vacation, Nancy McKeon filled in for her. Anna went to Costner and got the green light to have McKeon assigned as McMath's permanent replacement, and McMath was relieved to go back to her other duties. But McKeon ran into some of the same problems every other writer who worked with Anna encountered. She could not tell me why somebody was interesting, or dressed well, or what she or he did was of significance, states McKeon. She'd say, "But they have such great personal style." All she kept saying was, "It's personal style." Oh my God, if I heard that one more time, and I'd think, okay, well, that's 3 or 4 words. How does the rest go? McKeon, who later went on to become a powerhouse editor at the Washington Post, said that she would have felt flattered that Anna had chosen her to do her writing, but instead her reaction was like that of others on staff. We all felt taken over by Anna. If ruthless means being totally faithful to one's own vision and not bowing to anyone else's, then yes, Anna's ruthless. If you're being told that what you've done is rubbish, one of Anna's favorite words, and it's a matter of your own taste, it's hard not to feel hurt or slighted. And Anna doesn't hesitate to tell you. Well, then why didn't somebody use her same word for her? Why didn't somebody just say, well, you know what, your inability to write is rubbish. Your inability to do 50% of your job is what I consider rubbish. So why don't you come back to me when you have a few more ideas in your head? All right? You're going to have to learn how to articulate. Maybe read a few more books, Anna. Okay? I mean, it's like, if she can't do her job, why are you allowing her to come up in here and make you feel insecure about yours? You're doing half her job for her. And then she has the gall to act like you are somehow inferior to her. She can't even do 50% of her job. How in this blessed world are you inferior when you're doing your job and her job? How can anyone let this woman intimidate them? She doesn't even have the wherewithal to take her glasses off in a dark room. I mean, that is an idiot. A New York editor had always wondered what made Anna act the way that she did, terrorizing and abusing others and making certain people feel bad. By the time Anna left New York, the editor had learned enough about her that she felt she had a good take on what she saw as a fascinating, very private, and enigmatic person. Anna was very needy, and her ways of dealing with being needy were to always, always be on the offensive. Get them before they get you. She didn't care about having good friends. She only wanted to be in control, to be in charge. That was paramount to her, and was more important than people liking her. If she controlled everything, she felt safe. And people who have to be in that much control can be out of control. She had this insecurity, this lack of sense of self. She's very studied. Every detail was important. Every aspect of her life was programmed. Her goals were very clear, and they weren't about human relationships. The reason she never had any good friends was because she decided friends were not going to be the answer for her. That's very interesting. What a very insightful thing. And isn't that what we said, though? And we believe, you and I, we believe there was some abuse that happened to her when she was younger that made her feel that she had to be in control. Something happened to her that made her feel that to be out of control was more dangerous than to let your guard down and have some friends. All right, now, chapter 22. It's entitled A Territorial Grab. And what might that mean? I can only hope it means that she's going to try to get somebody's job, just because I would dislike her all the more for it. And I'm not in the mood to like Anna today. Anna's imperious British manner quickly grated on some of her American colleagues in New York. They began to razz her, one by telling her, "Your father's British, your mother's American." "Well, honey, if it's Judaism, you're the religion of your mother, so you're an American." Anna, who could dish it out, usually could take it too, and kept a stiff upper lip. But on at least one occasion she was, to everyone's surprise, brought to tears by an innocent and light-hearted prank. The temperature in New York's newsroom was either too hot or too cold, and on one particularly scorching summer afternoon, Anna pulled her bob off her forehead and neck and rubber-banded it into a top knot. One of the office clowns, noticing her new look, did the same to his hair, and soon everyone in the office joined in. Even Ed Costner came out of his office, doffed his Dunhill jacket, and put his hair up. Anna, who usually ignored everyone around her, had no idea what was going on. But when she got up from her desk to take a walk through the office, she suddenly looked around and was stunned to see everybody with their hair up just like hers, recalls Jordan Shops, one of the few staffers with whom she had bonded. She realized that she was being made sport of, burst into tears, and left the office for the day. I guess her English sensibility didn't like being the butt of that kind of humor. She didn't laugh and get the joke. There were attempts to bring Anna into the New York family fold, such as invitations to staff gatherings, one of which was an old-fashioned New England-style clam bake. When she got the invitation, Anna was stymied. "What is a clam bake?" she asked a colleague. "It's really fun," she was told. "Lobster, clams, corn, beer, and everybody has a rollicking good time on the beach." Everyone was there in old jeans, shorts, and t-shirts. And Anna shows up draped in a complete designer white pleated three-piece outfit with the stiletto shoes, recalls a colleague, still laughing about the moment years later. I said, "You know, Anna, we're going to be sitting on the stand." But she didn't have to. The men all jumped to attention and laid down blankets and jackets for her. And while everyone was eating with their hands, Anna was using utensils. She could always run the show, even at a clam bake. What? You show up in white to a clam bake? Stiletto shoes, and you're going to eat with utensils? You were told what it was. It's beer on the beach with a corn on the cob and clams. I mean, you can't imagine what you ought to wear to a thing like that. To me, coming overdressed would be as embarrassing as coming underdressed. And then to sit there and not, try to be part of the culture, but you're going to, eat corn on the cob with a knife and a fork? I mean, really? This person could not be any more annoying. One of the keys to Anna's success was the way she managed to snag creative photographers to work for her, most of them men, and have them work hard to make her look good. The thing she did so well was she never acted happy with their work, notes a former New York editor. So these guys were always jumping through hoops and doing backflips for her. And the way she kept them doing that was to let them know they hadn't quite measured up. Anna was always on the lookout for creative shooters to add to her stable. So when she got a call from Andrea Blanche, who said she had a good story idea, she instantly made an appointment to meet for drinks. Blanche hadn't been aware of Anna until she saw a couple of her layouts in New York and thought that they had a lot of style. An idea person, Blanche felt that her concept might fit well with the kind of work Anna was doing. "I found her very receptive to meet with me," she says. "My reputation was established. She knew of me. And that's why she took the call and agreed to get together." While Blanche was a female shooter, she was special to Anna because she shot for Vogue and was one of Alex Lieberman's favorites. Anna wouldn't have taken the time for anyone else. They met at a restaurant for about half an hour while Blanche pitched her journalistic fashion idea that she felt would fit in with what New York was doing. Anna sat and listened intently, leaning back in her chair, her hands resting on the table, not touching her wine and not taking any notes. Blanche, who's outgoing, noticed that Anna showed no reaction, acted reserved, and appeared aloof. When Blanche was finished, Anna gave her reaction. She told me right then and there that she didn't like the idea and that it wasn't something she could use or was good enough for the magazine. Naturally, Blanche was both disappointed and surprised because she usually had a good take on what editors liked. "I always try to fit the story to the editor, and I believed this fit with her." Blanche thanked Anna for her time and the two parted company. What do you think's gonna happen? Let's all just take some bets. Let's decide what Anna will do. Oh, I'll bet I know. I bet she will have listened the entire time to that story, said it was trash, acted like the whole idea was rubbish. And what do you think Blanche is going to see? Not long after, Blanche was leafing through the latest issue of New York when she froze. Not her idea in the pages of New York. Of course. Staring back at her was exactly the story idea that she had pitched and Anna had rejected, shot by a male photographer. The horror of it. The absolute unbelievability of it. And yet, so believable because it involves Anna Wintour. Blanche was shocked, and the thoughts that raced through her mind about Anna at that moment were, as she recalls years later, not very good things. I think you're always surprised when you feel somebody has stolen something from you and has given your idea to somebody else. After all, my ideas are, to me, how I make a living. So it's hard to take when you know someone's lifted from you. Blanche says the politics at Vogue in those days permitted such things to happen, and one had to adapt to it to stay in the game there. But Anna was a new person, New York a new venue. So I took her at her word. When I saw my story in the magazine, I was very upset and I probably shouted some profanities. So would I have. That's unbelievable, and yet so believable. But how could you sit there and you tell the whole person your vision and you were really tried to fit it to their likes, and they tell you it's a junk idea, it's total trash, and then you see it later? I mean, the unmitigated gall! Another prominent photographer with whom Anna had problems was Oliviero Toscani, but this time she took the brunt of the abuse. Anna was working on a piece with Jordan Shops, who was shocked by the scene that played out. Toscani had arrived late from Paris and got to the magazine weary from the trip, but Anna, working on a tight deadline, needed to get started immediately. We were waiting for him like acolytes because he was talented, brilliant. But instead of him being gracious, he was devastatingly brutal to Anna, says Shops. He didn't like the clothes, didn't like the girls, and was just a brute, a sarcastic brute. He strode around like an angry peacock and proceeded to criticize everything Anna had laid out, and he was so brutal that he reduced Anna to tears. I was shocked at his behavior, and surprised at her vulnerability. In fact, Toscani admired Anna's taste and creativity, but unlike other photographers, he refused to be intimidated by her. As a colleague of his notes, if Anna tried to pull any of her crap with him, it wouldn't work. He didn't need her approval. She needed his. So that's why he would make her cry, and is probably why he did it, just to remind her of that. Not everything with Anna was always so psychologically complex, especially when she was working with the likes of the fun-loving photographer Guy Lebomb, who caused the star of one of Anna's first big fashion shoots for New York to have a panic attack. The story was called Heat of the Night, and featured a stunning young model from North Carolina named Andie MacDowell, who went on to become an actress and a cosmetic spokeswoman. The setting was a narrow ledge after dark outside the Midtown Manhattan penthouse office of Diana B. Guy, mostly given a free hand by Anna because his work was worth it, had decided he wanted to have MacDowell in the foreground with the Empire State Building in the background, but on a slant and not level with his camera. This was in the days before something like that could be cheated in with computer software. So Guy decided to jerry-rig a platform with side rails to extend it out the window, some 30 stories above the street, and slant it. Anna had borrowed a classic chair from the Museum of Modern Art that could be placed on the platform, and MacDowell would be shot seated in the chair. It was a dangerous setup. But the only aspect Anna argued against was Guy's proposal to have a floor fan blowing up the pantyless MacDowell's designer dress. He thought it would keep her cool and also give the dress the effect of a billowing sail, with the Empire State Building resembling a sailboat leaning against the wind. But Anna felt it was dangerously windy enough to the altitude where they were working and that MacDowell didn't need a breeze between her legs. The actual shooting went well and the photos turned out beautifully, but Andie MacDowell's physical and emotional state was a different story at the end of the hour of picture taking. Andie has very beautiful eyes, but very poor eyesight, says Guy. It wasn't until we were done shooting that she realized she was 2 feet away from the edge on the 30th floor with absolutely no panties on. And she suffers from vertigo. She suddenly got dizzy and scared and started to cry and began yelling she didn't want to be there. What was funny was that Andie's half blind and she never realized that we put her in such a dangerous situation. When she realized it, she started to scream. The beauty of it was that Anna dealt with it very well. I always liked to experiment, and Anna let me do exactly what I wanted, he says. I could have had Andie MacDowell walking on a thread between 2 buildings and Anna wouldn't have blinked an eye. She just wanted the photos. More aggressive, ambitious, and confident than ever, Anna saw an opportunity to widen her power base at New York from strictly fashion. That's all she's good at. She doesn't need to be widening any power base. She was in charge initially of the special spring and fall fashion issues, But she then moved into furniture design, personality pieces, and all forms of style. She took over design and the food issues, says a former editor. She talked Costner into giving her all that. He was giving her everything she wanted. What? Anna saw that she could make such a territorial grab without stepping on many toes. Having closely studied the terrain and now seeing it in a fresh way, she realized there was a style vacuum at the magazine that only she was able to fill. She got Costner's ear and imposed direction and suggested ideas that no one else on staff had ever thought of or produced, because her talent was also visual. So she bulldozed forward just like any enterprising, ambitious, and driven man might have done in the same position and with the same foresight. She branched out and made up for the failures of imagination of the rest of us, says Nancy McKeon, who was writing all of Anna's copy. At the same time, she took herself seriously in a very frivolous profession because her real project commodity was herself. She wanted to clean up New York Magazine and bring in a touch of style, so she conceived this rotation. A page of home furnishings one week, a page of fashion the next, a page of girl around town celebrity something or other the following week. And this rotation brought a whole new level of photography and style thinking in New York that was very positive. But everything she did made everyone resentful. For Anna, it was a perfect time to be working as a fashion editor in New York, a period, as she later described it, when artists, fashion designers, and interior decorators were in fierce competition with each other for celebrity status. She explained her sense of things to Costner, who gave her carte blanche to take advantage of the situation, to break away from the visual catalog formula of fashion journalism. As it turned out, the decorators and the artists were delighted to be photographed next to gorgeous girls, and the approach seemed to be going down well. But some of the pieces Anna proposed seemed to have absolutely no relevancy and left McKeon and other staffers baffled. One girl around town story was about a minor British actress named Cleo Goldsmith. Goldsmith had performed nude scenes in several French and Italian B movies in the late 80s that showed on late-night cable. It was during that time that Anna decided to feature in New York for no other discernible reason than that she was starring in another lame sex farce called The Gift and was going to spend time in Manhattan. Whatever the reason, Anna directed McKeon to write some text blocks to go with the photos of Goldsmith. The wordsmith was, for once, stymied. She couldn't figure out what to do because Anna gave her no other information or direction. Moreover, McKeon couldn't discern why anything about this obscure actress should be published other than the fact that one Brit apparently was publicizing another. So she went to Costner and said, "What the hell is this? What are we doing this for? What can I do here?" Costner's lame response was, "Oh, it's interesting. Do it for Anna." And that was that. According to McKeon and others, Costner and his wife, Julie Baumgold, a contributing writer at New York at the time, had social ambitions and saw Anna as a shining star in their glitzy Manhattan firmament. Costner saw Anna turning a part of New York into a fashion trend-setting magazine, which I guess he figured would work well for him and Julie at the cocktail circuit, notes a colleague. At the same time, like so many other men, Costner was captivated and enchanted by Anna, who knew how to work it and how to read him. She figured, here's this guy who has this sort of vision of himself, who's social, who always mentioned that he bought his suits at Paul Stewart, maintains McKeon. Anna was very sexy in a total, very all-girl kind of way. It was a Japanese moment, so she would wear these outfits loose and without a bra, and she had a succulent body, very slim, but not the anorexic thing that she has since done, where she's all head. She would always dab on perfume before she went in to see Ed. So she very much had a feeling about herself that she was a weapon, that she herself was a power. Another editor recalls how Anna would stride into Costner's office in high heels, beautifully dressed, bat those big eyes to say to him, "I know you'll agree with this," and get whatever she wanted. Besides being mesmerized by her, Costner was knocked out by Anna's work, such as the time she commissioned a group of well-known artists to paint backdrops with models in the foreground. "It was a perfect piece for us, and, at the time, a real first," he said later. It became such a standard now, but Anna was definitely the first. Anna had developed many social contacts in the art world, such as glitzy New York gallery owner Mary Boone, who represented artists such as David Sall and Julian Schnabel, who participated in the model backdrop shoot. Anna may have borrowed the concept from what set designers had done on Kathy McGowan's Ready, Steady, Go dance show when she was a teenager in London. As Costner gave Anna free rein to do whatever she wanted within her expanding domain, a territorial fear gripped some of the women staffers, among them Best Bet's Corky Pollen, who co-wrote blurbs with McKeon about things to buy, see, and do in the city. Pollen feared the worst about Anna and became like a modern-day Paul Revere out to warn the villagers about an imminent British attack. And her fear was warranted. Anna despised Best Bets. She saw it as a group of boring pictures with uninteresting tips, so she got Costner's ear and started dummying up well-orchestrated still lifes, such as layouts with everything white. The woman's ego knew no bounds, McKeon says. Realizing that a revolution was afoot in the newsroom, Pauline kept the enemy under tight surveillance from her Best Bets desk, which was in close range of Anna's White Formica command post. Corky came to me one day, recalls McKeon, and said, "We'd better watch our backs." I asked her what she meant, and she said, "Well, if we don't watch out, this woman's going to take over everything. She's going to take all our jobs." And 2 weeks later, Anna's profiles, these one-page fashion, home furnishing, celebrity things started appearing. But Best Bets remained. One of those shoots involved a piece shot in a house Anna had rented in the Hamptons. The cover photograph Anna was going for was of a model with an extremely expensive piece of cowhide draped over her in a stylish way. Working on the shoot with her was Jordan Shops, who had certain qualms about Anna's concept and finally felt compelled to express his view. "So you really think," he asked Anna, "that the New York Magazine woman is going to go out and spend $5,000 on a leather hide to throw around?" Anna stared hard at him for a few seconds and then declared, "My dear, I don't care if they go to Woolworth's and buy a lump of fabric. It's not about fashion, it's about style." And I was very impressed by what she said and loved the attitude. Who are these people who are just so, lambasted by a person who can speak with authority? Do you know what I'm realizing more and more and more and more? That the other person doesn't have to have anything to say, but if they say it with enunciation, if they say it like they really mean it, if they say it as though it's something that you should have concluded on your own, so many weak-minded people are like, "Oh, yeah, you're right. That person really knows something." They don't know shit. They don't know anything. They just know how to say it in a way that you hadn't realized you could say it. You could say the most mundane thing, but if you say it with authority and you're talking to somebody who is cowed by authority, you can get away with anything. You guys, she didn't say anything. She is being paid to do fashion spreads, but she doesn't care about the fashion. She says it's about the style. Explain that to me. What does that mean? What do you mean it's about the style? How so? How does that supersede your job as being the fashion editor? I need to know what you mean by this word style, and I need you to be explicit about it. What are you talking about? If we're supposed to be presenting New York to the New York woman, what is she going to do with this $5,000 cowhide rug? What style is that? What style is it where we lie around under animal skins? What style is that? Caveman style? What are you talking about? There were 3 cardinal sins at New York under Costner that could result in an employee's dismissal: lying on an expense report, leaking internal information about a story, and giving copy or photo approval to a subject. Anna committed the 3rd. Anyone else would have been fired on the spot, but because the violator was Anna, Costner bent the rules. After completing a summer fashion shoot with the sultry new actress Rachel Ward, Anna approached another editor who worked on the story and requested the final layout photos, saying she wanted to send them to Ward for her approval. An absolute no-no, which Anna knew. The editor was in for an even greater surprise while examining the model release form. In writing, Anna had actually given Ward, who wasn't a major star at the time, approval over the photos. Bottom line, if the Australian-born actress didn't like the pictures and refused to approve them, the story might have to be killed. Maybe Anna didn't expect Ward would hold us to it. Maybe Anna thought that she could get away with it, speculates the Associate years later. Even back then, long before celebrities became a staple of every form of magazine from sports to fashion, Anna foresaw that sexy stars like Ward on the cover sold copies, and she was desperate to reel one in at whatever cost. The editor explained the dire situation to Costner, who summoned Anna for a private meeting. Ed was not pleased, the staffer recalls, and the next morning Anna was aboard a flight to La La Land on her own dime, with the photos in hand, in hopes of getting the subject's approval. Costner had apparently given Anne permission to ignore the no-show rule in order to salvage the story. As it turned out, Ward gave her okay for the inside photos, but refused to approve the shot of her in a bathing suit destined for New York's cover. A last-ditch attempt was made from New York to get her cooperation, but then she broke into tears on the phone. She was crying and saying, "I look so fat. Please don't use it," a staffer says. And Ward was told, "If that's the way you feel, honey, we won't do it." In the end, the story ran, but with a non-celebrity model on the cover, considerably weakening its impact. Anna acted as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened, never looked back, plowed forward, determined to reach her goal. And that goal seemed closer than ever because of a fashionista of the first order, a veteran Vogue editor by the name Polly Mellon. Like Anna, Mellon had a reputation as a perfectionist, was difficult to work for, lived for fashion, and possessed a keen eye and astute taste. Mellon had first spotted Anna's work in the 70s when Anna first started covering the collections as a young editor for Harper's and Queen. Mellon was intrigued. "Who is that beautiful little girl? How fascinating she is. How she dresses, how she mixes," Mellon recalls thinking. "I noticed her intensity and how she never took many notes. And I'm always fascinated with people who don't take notes. They don't want to remember what interests them the most. Or maybe they don't know how. You know what I'm saying? Like, if this is a person who can't write a story about the clothes, I don't think she knows how to take notes about the clothes either." Over the years, when they ran into each other, they'd chat about everything, from clothes to men, especially men, because Anna liked men in a very interesting way, and she was a flirt. In 1982, Anna's second year at New York, they bumped into each other at a hotel restaurant, and Anna used the opportunity to pitch herself to Mellon. "I sat next to her, we talked, and at the end I told her, I wish you were at Vogue," Mellon recalls. "So do I," reported Anna, who surely was walking on air by the time she got back to her desk in New York. Meanwhile, back at Vogue, Mellon gushed about Anna to editor-in-chief Grace Marabella, a Jersey girl who had worked her way up through the ranks under Diana Vreeland. "I said to Grace, 'Grace, you have to meet this incredible young woman at New York Magazine. She's so with it. Her eye is fantastic. She doesn't just dig fashion. She loves houses. She loves art. She loves everything.' And it was really what Grace and I had been talking about for some time, which is fashion is not just fashion, it's lifestyle. I said to Grace, I wish you could meet her." Marabella agreed to a meeting, which Mellon zealously arranged. Anna, of course, had to do it on the sly so that no one at New York would find out that she was starting to job hunt. Anna arrived, and I met her at the elevator, and I brought her into Grace's office, and I left so they could talk together, says Mellon. The meeting didn't last long, possibly 10 minutes max, before Marabella's secretary summoned Mellon to come and pick up her visitor. I took Anna to the elevator, and I asked, "How'd it go? I so hope it went well." And she said briskly, "I'm not sure, but anyway, thank you and goodbye." The elevator door closed and she was gone. By the time Mellon got back to her office, there was a message waiting for her from Marabella to come to the inner sanctum forthwith. Such a summons from the usually easygoing editor-in-chief was a bad sign. The thought that raced through Mellon's mind was, oh my God, not good. What could have happened? When Mellon arrived, Grace recapped the brief interview, an event the very dramatic Mellon says she's never forgotten. At the end, Grace said to Anna, "If you came to Vogue, what job would you like?" And Anna said, "Well, actually, the job I would like is your job." Marabella instantly terminated the discussion and had Anna ushered out. Mellon listened in stunned silence and then managed to utter a few words. "Oh, dear. Oh, God." Grace was very displeased. Anna didn't have a chance with her. Anna didn't get the gold ring this time, and it wouldn't be long before Marabella's world would be turned upside down by the arrogant young woman she had quickly dispatched. Oh my! What an idiot. How do you go into somebody's office and say, "I want your job"? I mean, your wild ways of acting like, you can just say whatever you want, do whatever you want, there's no consequences to what you do, and say, "Hello, do you live in the world with us? You cannot go into somebody's office and be like, 'I want you to hire me and I'm going to take your job if you do.'" Like, what the actual is this? All right, we've been talking for a long time, so I have to let you go. But I am very interested to find out what happens when she finally gets to Vogue. We all know that Vogue became trash under her careful tutelage. So I feel like I want to know what everybody thought of her and what the atmosphere was like. And honestly, I'm shocked that she remained so long. With this kind of personality, it's a real shocker. It's a real shocker. But we're going to get there. I have to tell you that my favorite story today was the one where the woman Karen, Malarkey, funnily enough, wasn't about to put up with any malarkey and told her how it is. Praise the Lord. I really needed that. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow for our Friday News Roundup. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, and we'll pick up the book next week. Bye.